And today, we can already sum up the results of Istanbul, setting aside the only interesting point about the exchange of 1,000 for 1,000 prisoners, which caused outrage in the Duma, in the State Duma of the Russian Federation, where they stated that under no circumstances should the number of Russians taken prisoner be disclosed. And in general, no one should be taken prisoner because, as it turns out, all these mass suicides that I periodically show on my Telegram channel have gotten tiresome, since really there's nothing new apart from pulling the pin on a grenade or putting a barrel in their mouth. The orcs can't come up with anything else. They don't demonstrate any exotic or interesting methods of suicide. So it's already boring to show this. The audience is already tired of it, but believe me, the suicides keep happening over and over again. And I keep receiving tons of videos where they're captured by drone. Nevertheless, it turns out that in the Duma, there is actually a point of view that Russian soldiers shouldn't surrender, and that suicide is much more preferable. So it's not just pain-induced delirium, it's not just natural despair, it's also the instructions from commanders, it's even a directive to end their own lives. But let's get back to the results of Istanbul. You can't really say that this old windbag Medinsky was especially nasty, or that he stood out much from the rest of the Russian delegation. No. The overall level of that whole crew was about the same as their so-called views. And the fact that these seemingly respectable people at first glance also went through the cycle of transformation and turned into true orcs. Perhaps that's exactly what struck so many people around the world. Tens or maybe even hundreds of millions. We saw the colorlessness in their eyes, the facelessness of their mugs, and the absolutely uniform vocabulary, the vocabulary of the Kremlin patient servants who repeat their master's words verbatim for the impressionable public. And most people are impressionable. This became the most unpleasant revelation. So it's not just the trenched drunks, but also respectable faces, official faces, who have truly transformed into Uruk-hai. In fact, I suspect that they are even more terrifying and sadistic than the simple brainless trench dwellers. That is, if, for example, Medinsky, someone like Galuzin or someone like Podobrievskaya had ended up in Bucha, there would have been about 3 times as many people shot there. And probably the children and grandchildren of all these delegates, the delegates who have been shown to the whole world, if these children and grandchildren have retained any remnants of reason, they are now scouring the internet, looking into how quickly they can change their last names and how to cover up various family connections. Because this is, of course, a disgrace that casts a shadow not only on the children and grandchildren, but in fact on all future generations. So what was happening in Istanbul? Nothing. Nothing, except for the fact that thieves, murderers, and butchers were publicly mocking their victim, informing the victim that they would continue to rape her while simultaneously cutting off pieces of her living body. And this was happening not somewhere out in the ruins, behind garages, out of sight, not in dirty ditches, but in full view of the world's media, in the Turkish palace, completely official. And what became clear? It became clear that Russia would not stop the war. It became clear that, well, at this point, yes, before the conversation with Trump, it became clear that not even 1,000 Macrons could break Putin's mania. And at the same time, it became clear that this war could be ended, that this war is over, could be ended with a single bullet to a single forehead. And all these orcs, both the trench orcs and the diplomatic orcs, whether in Brioni suits or in quilted jackets, are incapable of anything on their own. And once they lose the controlling impulse from the Kremlin, they will turn into a confused, disoriented slime. And they will quickly dry up to the state of an empty husk.